Well, hi, Debbie. It's so nice to meet you person as a instead of just sending emails. I wanted to give you the opportunity first to introduce yourself to anybody that might be watching, and maybe say a little bit about how you were involved with Intellect Project.
Okay. Well, hi, Jeremy. It's nice to meet you as well. My name is Debbie Simon. I live in Boca Raton, Florida, and I was introduced to the Interlight Project. I was attending a grief support group. Our son Scott suffered from addiction, and I joined a grief support group, and one of the leaders of the group had sent me a link about the Interlight Project, and it was coming to Florida. Probably I think she sent it to me, months before it was coming, and just said if I was interested in, possibly attending it. And so the more I did, and one of the qualifications was that our loved one had to have been born in Florida or had to pass in Florida, and Scott was born in Florida in 1988. So that led me to, sign up for it. And that's just how it really started.
Yeah. Well, I read Scott's submission. It was a beautiful submission.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he was an extremely talented baseball player. And,
Yes, he was.
he's just 5 years, he's 5 years younger than me. I was born in
Oh,
1983.
oh, really?
Also a baseball player, but nowhere near talented to go and play at like Penn State or anything like that. And I also saw that not only was he a pitcher, but that he was a home run leader. So he must have been an extremely talented
Yeah,
athlete.
he was. He was always in sports from the time he was little. But baseball was really that was his love. And so,
Yeah.
he started playing t-ball and just kind of was in the city leagues. And then when he got into school, he really, accelerated. And then high school was that was where he really, he was on, the all-star leagues and things like that. And he was most valuable player his senior year in high school. And he was a left-handed pitcher too. So that really, that was really a blessing for him. And then, yeah, he was very lucky that he went to my husband went to Penn State. He's an alumni from Penn State. So Scott went there and was able to play on not the main campus team, but he was on the Altoona campus team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
He loved it.
sounds like he accomplished a lot in a short time.
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah. So I wanted to just ask a couple questions about what it was like for you and your family to participate in the project. Really, for anybody that might be watching this that is thinking about submitting a loved one that they lost. What was it like to actually fill out the submission form?
Well, I will say that it was it was it was emotional. I mean, in some ways, but um, the more involved I got in it, and once I sent it, I just felt that I was really doing something that was important, and I knew I felt my son right there with me every time I was, um, completing something because I thought, he's gonna be proud of this. It would make him proud that um, because he struggled with it. I'm so sorry. I knew I was gonna get emotional,
No, of
but
course. No need to apologize.
that was very tough for him. Yeah, it was very hard for him, and so it just gave us an opportunity to bring awareness to the disease because it was so hard. I mean, he struggled with it for pretty much from the time he went to college, from the time he was 20, I'd say. High school years were fine. It was once he went away to school, and unfortunately, I think he made some bad decisions.
Mm,
And you never know when it's going to take over, and it did. And so I felt that through the process, and everyone I worked with was so compassionate and so wonderful. And all the interviews that I had, prior to the actual project, they were just, it really, I felt very proud to be proud of it. I really, really did. And I was so happy that I did it. And my husband as well. He was
yeah.
really, really happy that we decided to join it. So,
So it sounds like very emotional, but very meaningful, and gave you some solace. Even that part of it gave you some solace. It sounds like.
Yes, yes, picture that we wanted to send to Teresa and all of that. It just went very, very smoothly. It was and then I also some other of the parents from the group I was in, they actually were involved in it as well. So, that was helpful too, that I knew some of the other participants that parents that were going to be there. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was very special. And then it turned out that one of the ladies that I actually the moms that I went to meetings with, her son and my son, they were right next to each other. Their portraits were. We didn't even know that. So
that's Sandra.
yeah, Sandra
Yeah,
Simon.
I had
Yeah.
such a lovely conversation with Sandra as well. Actually, the video conversation I just did with her just got posted. I
Oh,
want to
did
say
it?
yesterday. Yes, you'll have to take a look for
Oh,
that.
I'll have to look at, yeah.
But we
Yeah,
had such a great conversation. She's a wonderful lady as well.
she
Yeah,
really
yeah.
is. And her
So
son
that's
John.
so
Yeah,
such a small world. That's really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there's a little bit of and I don't know if you've had a chance to look, but we did just redo the website for Into Light, and I think it's a lot more clear now than it was before. But I always mention in every single one of these conversations, because I never know who's going to look at which video, but
Mhm.
there's very few people that see that information, and I don't know if some families think that it like goes to some big company and goes into some database. It doesn't. It goes right to the founder Teresa and the director Barbara,
Mhm.
and then they decide which artist, like myself, I am a portrait artist, and which narrative writer, and those are the only people that see that information. Um,
Oh,
and so it's really a small group of us. We're all
uh-huh.
very, very dedicated to making sure that we honor, and cherish the person that is being entrusted to us. For me, it's the family.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to ask you, was it Teresa that did the portrait for you?
Yes, Teresa did Scott's portrait. She did. Yes.
What was it like working with her in that capacity as an artist?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, she was so kind. And that, like as I said, trying to decide on the picture, that was a it took some time for us to figure out which one we wanted to send. And once I did, she actually, she would send me the draft, I guess, the draft of it. And
Yeah.
if there was something, like I can remember specifically, there was something about his eyes that I wanted her to change a little, and
Yeah.
she did it, and she did it absolutely perfect. And
Yeah.
so she worked with such fine detail, little things like that, I guess as his mom, I wanted him to look just how I wanted him to look. And
Of course.
so I can specifically remember that there was something about the eyes, and she changed it, and it was perfect. And we have that portrait hanging in our home right now. And I talk to it every day. It's just wonderful. It's like I feel like he's in the room every time I look at that
Mm.
portrait. It's really, really beautiful. I
Well,
love it.
that's beautiful. That is a beautiful sentiment. I
Yeah.
know that when
Yeah.
Teresa sees this, that will mean the world to her.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
to a T, for me, every single time a family member or a loved one sees something about a portrait that I've sent that doesn't look quite right and gives me feedback,
Mhm.
every time I make that change, I'm like, there it is. Like
Yeah.
that's what was missing. I just had this happen last night. I had sent a portrait that I
Uh-huh.
thought looked really good. I was like, I think this looks good. I'm going to send it to the family and see what they think. And they
Mhm.
got back a couple days later and said, there's something about that right eyebrow that doesn't look right. And they sent me some other photos. And sure enough, the eyebrow needed to be thicker and needed to kind of have like a little like upturn to it.
Uh-huh.
I made that
Uh-huh.
little change and it was like, there
That
he
was
is.
it. Yeah.
It was amazing to see that. And
Uh-huh.
again, so without the help, I think of loved ones, it would be incredibly difficult for us to just all we have is a photo. You've known them your entire life or their
Right.
entire life, and so
Right. Right.
I think that that for me is always a really rewarding part of the process, being able to reach out to someone and say, here's where the portrait's at now. And my wife
Mhm.
is just walking by, so she was looking at us working from home. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but I love that back and forth. And there's been times that I've had to do that 10 or 15 times if there's a particularly difficult photograph or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Right.
And It's great. I mean, I like that. I don't know if some artists would be like that, but I like that. I like working with the family to help them find, their loved one in the finished piece. Um,
Yeah, and
and then
I will say too that I knew that and until we got to the actual exhibit, I thought, okay, now this is going to be hanging there. So I wanted it to be, just to really capture our son's spirit, and it really did. And I think too the fact that being a portrait like it was, and in the black and white sketching. It was just perfect. It really, really was. It's like I said, it's in a very special place in our house. And I moved it around a few times, I will say that.
was
And
wondering if you just
yeah,
hung it somewhere and left it, or
I had it hung one place, and then, I kept looking and I thought, nope. And I felt my son saying, no, here's where I want you to put it, Mom. And
that's
we did. We
interesting.
moved it there, and it's been there ever since. And it just every day it brings me joy when I see it every morning. So
Well,
really, really
thank
special.
you. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Would you recommend, in general, to other families that have lost someone, to addiction, to this disease, that they participate in the project? And if so, why would you recommend?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I 100% would. It For myself and my husband, it was a very healing experience. It really, really was. It was only 2 years after our son had passed, maybe less than that, I think it was. And we didn't really know what to expect, but we had to go to Orlando. It wasn't far from us, and I have to say, it was such a uplifting experience. It really, really was. I mean, yes, there were tears, but it was just so much joy there too. And I have to say, the meeting the families of and friends of the loved ones that were there, we just, we all started conversations, and you just walked around the room, and it exuded their spirits. I have to say that. I felt the presence of every one of them in that room. And it was in a positive way. It wasn't, as I said, it was sad in some ways. I think when you first see the portrait and you saw the narrative there. But then I just, we went back, we were there a couple days, and it just was a very uplifting experience altogether. It
Mm,
really, really was. And I would definitely, it's just a beautiful way to honor our children and your loved one. And, they battled with this disease, and it's just a part of who they were, a very small part, and, there's so much more to them. And, also I felt that, knowing that all of the kids that were going to be going through there, because they were going to bring schools into the exhibits and such, I just thought, boy, my son, now you had to know Scott. He had a very strong spirit. He lit up a room when he walked in, and I
mm,
really mean that. And I thought to myself, boy, he was just beaming, I'm sure, when all these kids were coming in, because I know it's going to help people, because I know that he was in a lot of ways so embarrassed by the disease. And yes, he got help, but I think he had a lot of support from his family. But I see how many people that suffer from this disease that don't get that help because of the stigma. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this project is it gets rid of that stigma.
mm.
It really, really does. And it's so important. It really is.
You're leading right into my next question so beautifully, and that is, that is obviously the purpose of all of this, is to change that staggering number of people that never seek help,
Right.
never seek treatment because they're so ashamed or
Yeah.
embarrassed about this, and to help, I think, educate family members that there's nothing to be embarrassed about and that they really need help. They really
Right.
need
Really
help.
needed it. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there was anybody in your circle, personally, in your family, that you felt was changed in some way. And you don't need to name any names, of course, but I'm just wondering if you personally saw, that change that the project is intending to bring about at all.
Um, I would say my husband, because, my husband really struggled with it, as I did too, but he kept it more to himself. I went to a lot of meetings. I was always attending, support group meetings while my son struggled. And it was very helpful, to go to those meetings and talk about it and have a support group there. And my husband didn't do that, and he kept it mostly to himself. And so when this project came up, we went up. It happened to be too that the first day of the project was our wedding anniversary. So I think that was significant. I said this was meant to be, and it just from the moment that he walked into the exhibit, he just it just shifted his whole. He felt proud. He felt very proud, and he told me that. We went out to dinner that night because it was our anniversary, and we were actually even talking to talking to our waitress about it, and she said, "Oh, what brought you here?" And my husband told her, and prior to that, going to that project, I don't know that he would have been so open about it. So I saw what it did for him, and it helped me too, but more so even my husband. It really
Wow.
was. He felt very proud, and I can't say that he always felt that way about our son prior to that because of the struggles that he went through.
I'm sure it was
So
always very complicated. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah,
Um, I personally suffered with a lot of shame and stigma, not so much about my drinking, but definitely about my drug use, and hid it
yeah.
from everybody. I mean, even my wife, who's known me since I was like 13, was like, I had no idea all that was going on. And
Um,
really interesting that um, I do think that to some extent my parents were aware, but I think I hid it pretty well from them. But I always wondered if and I do know now how proud they are of me, no matter what, 100%. But it's
oh yeah,
beautiful for me to hear you share that, um, and talk about how happy that must make your son. That
yeah,
his dad, has more of an understanding. And I
definitely.
think that's going to mean the world to Teresa and Barbara, the world when they see this interview.
Um,
Um, is there anything else? Was there any stories? Were there any? Is there anything else you'd like to relay to anybody that might be watching this, whether they went through the project or are thinking about going through the project? Anything for Teresa? Just anything at all?
um, Well, I let's see. I will say too, I felt that writing the narrative about Scott and his life, we did it as a family. We have another son, Brendan. He's younger than Scott, and he came over and we all did it. And, we talked about it, and I even reached out to family members, his cousins that live in Ohio and such, and everybody gave some feedback about just little things about him. And it just, it really brought us all together in such a wonderful way. And I felt, I know that Scott had a big part of it. I know he did. And I just think that it's, what am I trying to say? What I really want to stress too is like for the closing ceremony, we went back a month later. My husband didn't go back for that. He couldn't go for work purposes, but my friends went, some of my dearest friends. And it was such a beautiful, they said when we left that day, they said that it was the energy of every one of those souls was so lit up in that room at the end. And it was just such a beautiful experience for them. I mean, they were very emotional about it. And they said, they thanked me. They said, we are so grateful to you that you invited us to share this with you because, they said it was such an honor to be there and to see all of these, they're mostly young people. I mean, sadly, that's who it is. They're all in that same age pretty much. And that's what I noticed when I, walked around that room and saw who they all were. And so many of them were athletes. And, those are the things that I want to remember. Those are the things that were important in Scott's life. And, you know, it was very, it was very healing. And for my friends to say that, they said it was just such an honor to be there and to meet Teresa. She was just Absolutely. I mean, I feel like she's an angel. I really do because,
Oh yeah, I completely agree.
from really, I mean, even when I first found out about it and I went on the website and I read her story, I just knew. I felt this instant connection to her. And, even when she described to me when she was doing my son's portrait, she said, she sensed his personality and the way she said that they talked to her. I have no doubt that, that really is the case because the way she captured their pictures and their portraits, it was really, really
I love
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love her work. I love her work so much. Well, I also I like to at every opportunity I can, I like to plug Teresa because what an unbelievably inspirational person. Not only is she
Mm.
still doing a lot of the portraits for each of these exhibits, but it costs $50,000 per state.
Her
And
state.
she does not have an angel investor funding this at all. She is out there really
Yeah.
working hard, trying to get funding in every single state to find personal donors, So I like to just because you never know who's going to be watching this. I like to just mention that there's a lot of ways to help Intellate. An individual donation of any amount. I don't. It can be $5. It doesn't matter. Honestly,
Oh,
any amount helps so much. One of the parents, who I'll plug as well, Bernadette Brierly, from, I might have just said her name wrong. I apologize, Bernadette. But she was in the California exhibit. She has raised just about $50,000.
wow.
And the Massachusetts exhibit is going to be in honor of her daughter, because of it.
Oh, that's
And she's
wonderful.
done that just through emailing the people that she are in her network and asking and saying, hey, today's the anniversary of Jessica's death, or today's Jessica's birthday, and if you would have wanted to give her a gift today, I ask that you give it to Intellite.
Hmm.
And she set this up so that Apple, which is where she worked, did a matching donation. I mean, she's an incredible
Oh, that's
person.
awesome. That's
um,
wonderful.
yeah, but I mean, so an individual donation, and then there's also something called the Circle of Light, which is on the website, and people can join for any amount monthly, just to know that they are supporting Teresa's efforts and continuing this mission that she has of not only doing an Intellite exhibit in every state, but kind of having a larger culminating national exhibit in Washington, D.C., to wrap up the project. She's also
Yeah.
doing all sorts of wonderful things, with this new element called continuing the conversation, where states can opt to basically, well, they purchase an exact replica of the exhibit.
Oh,
And then the states can then continue exhibiting it even after the artwork has been gifted to the families,
oh.
for educational purposes. And so she's also out there working to find out which states want to. I know Delaware has purchased two continuing the conversation
Mm.
packages, and are using it for educational purposes in each county. And so she's such a powerhouse, and there's no doubt in my mind. I don't. It's probably hard to figure out how many lives she has saved in the process of
Oh,
doing all this.
yeah. And
And
I'm so glad you told me that, Jeremy, because I didn't know. I haven't gone on the website in a while, so I definitely will join that circle of light. And I'll do more now to try to spread the word about it as well, because I don't think there's one family that does not have a loved one that suffers from this disease. I've learned that, and
it's everywhere. It's so
oh, it
common.
is. And I have so many friends that I attended the meetings with that are still going to the meetings, that their loved
Mhm.
ones are still struggling.
Yeah,
And it's just I mean, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic.
yeah,
And I always said, if you had a physical ailment, whether it be your heart or something, you get help. Well,
mhm.
with addiction, it was such a secret thing, and it's become so much more talked about now. And Teresa is just the fact that she's doing this, it's wonderful. And I'm getting excited now that maybe I can try to do something I still work as well. And I'd like to try to maybe, to raise some money to continue,
Um,
to
well,
continue to have the projects in the different states. So,
that's the number one thing I think all of us can do for Teresa to support her, because I mean she's
right.
having that back from being able to do as many portraits because the administrative side of this is so all
Mm,
consuming.
sure.
Not only is she doing three exhibitions in 2024, but she's already working into 2025, having meetings with representatives and states moving forward. She's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think
Wonderful.
that anybody that's watching this that's been touched by her or impacted by her, like I said, a one-time gift or joining the Circle of Light or reaching out to networks is such an incredible thing to do. And I
Sure.
don't know if you're on, I think sometimes these things go to junk mail, but I did just send something from Into Light email blast to all of the families that went through this. So you should have received it, but it was actually a personal appeal video from Bernadette along with an email template that she's been using. So if that would be helpful for you,
Okay.
let me know if you received it or if you need me to resend it, and I'll resend it to you.
Yeah, if you could resend it, because I don't think
Mhm.
I didn't get it. I would have known that. I would have seen it if I
Yeah.
got it. So
Sometimes MailChimp just goes right into the
yeah, and it could be because my email is my work email, so we got so
uh-huh.
many,
It goes
blocks up and things like that. But if you
there.
could send it to me again, that would be
I,
awesome. That
I
would
sure
definitely be
will. I
wonderful.
sure will. Well, Debbie, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Every time I have one of these conversations, I come away. It helps my own personal recovery so much
That's great. That's wonderful to
to
hear.
hear from the people who have gone through so much because of this disease. And so thank you for sharing and thank you for helping
Um,
me and anybody else that may have watched this that decided to now participate in the project or had some questions answered or just were happy to see that you're doing so well and that you're
mm,
so proud of your son. And
thank you.
that's really powerful. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I feel, blessed that I was part of this. I really, really do. And I hope that anybody, that hears this would, you know, attend if they can, because it was a transforming experience. It really was. And I'm not just saying that. I really feel that way. And that's why when you reached out to me, I thought, oh my gosh, if I could do something more for it now,
Mm.
I would be more than happy to. And, I may be retiring soon. So maybe once I do, I could even get more involved and do,
Uh,
help out and do volunteer work for it. That would be a great thing to do.
yeah.
Because
Well,
I think about that. I think, okay, if I retire, what am I going to do with my time? But this would be
yeah.
a wonderful cause to help out with. So
Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad all day, and so when my daughter's napping, I'm doing this. It's great.
yeah, I know. That's wonderful. How old's your daughter?
She's about 15 months, just over
Oh,
15 months old, and she is as
oh.
sweet as can be. But we're at that age where all she wants to do is climb up and down the stairs all day long.
Oh
So,
yeah, she's all over now. She's mobile all over the place.
absolutely.
Oh, but
Well,
that's
Debbie, thank
wonderful.
you.